Okay, looks like we're ready. Yeah. Council, welcome to the Wednesday, April 7th meeting. Glad to see everyone here. We'll call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. Today's meeting is being held as a virtual meeting due to the declared emergency. In order to keep everyone safe, we are taking this measure to help stop the spread of COVID-19. Although this is a virtual meeting, we'll attempt to record, stream live, and publish in accordance with the Council's electronic recording of meeting policy. Today's meeting may be streamed live as well as recorded and published on the Southwest Middlesex YouTube channel and website. Council, are there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Yes, Mark, I saw your hand first, followed by Krista. Go ahead, Mark.
Yep, section 8E3 McFarland Drain, section 78 improvement. I have a conflict with that because I'm assessed on that drain, and I sent the paperwork into Denny already.
Okay, thank you very much. And Councillor Cal, go ahead.
Section 16 bylaws, 1 and 2, and I've sent the paperwork already.
Okay. Krista, okay. When we do those bylaws at the appropriate time, we will take out the first two bylaws so that Councillor Cal can join us in the rest. And thank you for declaring that, councillors. Item number 3 on the agenda, additions. Are there any? Seeing none. Council, I'll entertain a motion that the regular agenda of council dated April 7th be accepted as presented. Mark, moved by Councillor McGill, seconded by Councillor Bartlett. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Item 4, council on the agenda, delegations and presentations. There are none. Item 5, the consent agenda. I will read the content of the correspondence and the items, and I will pause for a moment. I'll look at my screen, and if any of council wish some of these to be pulled out or discussed, we certainly will accommodate you. Southwest Middlesex Council meetings of March 24th, 2021. Southwest Middlesex vouchers. Thank you, Council, for calling in. C, General Hillier, COVID-19 Distribution Task Force update. D, non-agricultural source material correspondence plan approval. There are D and E. Yes, Councillor Scholdice, go ahead.
This is the NASM plan, is it? NASM?
Yes.
Does this have to be renewed at some point in the future?
I'm not sure. I'll ask Jill to answer that. I'm just not sure the renewal of, I think, is each application separate unto itself, I believe. Jill, would you want to take a stab at that?
Sure. Through you, Mayor Mayhew, my understanding is that for this type of application, it's approved by the ministry on a 5-year cycle. And then they notify us when the approval goes through, and this is our public notification of it.
Okay, thank you. And that's the green compost material. Continuing, yes, Councillor Crothers, go ahead.
Yes. Number E, approval number 24596 for the Mitchell Farm. There are 13 different suppliers listed. Now, is that just a choice of suppliers? They may use one or the other. I think it says on there it's not meant for stockpiling, it's just for spreading. I just wondered why there's so many different potential suppliers on that one job. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure the reasons for that. If any of staff would like to take an attempt at that, or Mark, Councillor McGill, if you have some knowledge on it, go ahead. Recognize your hand, Councillor McGill. Go ahead.
That one is biosolids, I believe, from
Yes.
what I read.
Yes, it is.
The first one is green box waste. The second one is biosolids, and it looks like it could potentially be from 13 different sources, yes. But
That's
That's
just,
all I have to
it may
comment.
be only one or two. I just wondered when I saw so many, hopefully they aren't all gonna bring it.
Okay, thank you, Council. We'll continue. I don't see any hands up. Keep looking here. Item F, resolution of Kingsville regarding firearms. G, resolution Town of Orangeville regarding a planning matter and the scheduling. Item H, Minister Bethlen Falva regarding cannabis. Yes, Councillor Cowell, go ahead.
Do we
Go
know?
ahead, Councillor Cowell.
Thank you. Do we know how much our portion of that will be through the chair to Jill?
Yep, go ahead, Jill.
Oh, thanks. I might defer to Kristen on that.
It's 5,000.
Okay. Thank you, Kristen. Resolution municipality of Calvin regarding sick leave. Yes, Councillor Cowell, go ahead.
I'd like to move that we support this motion.
Very well. Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Deputy Mayor Wilkins. And council discussion on this. Yes, Councillor Vink, go ahead.
Who would this affect as far as having to pay? Like, would the government have to pay for all private employers? Is that basically the idea behind this?
Yes, Councillor Cowell, go ahead.
In the past, sick days were made available, about 3 sick days a year, and the employers, all employers, had to cover that. In many instances, like with municipalities or governments or larger organizations, anything that was unionized already had in place a certain number of paid sick days a year, and this just made it so that there would be 3 paid sick days for everyone in the province. And the motion that was put forward by this municipality was that perhaps, given the pandemic, this should be a basic right of employees within the province to be able to have sick days, so that if they're feeling unwell, they don't have to worry about their pay in general, and be able to take a day to be home well and recover and not bring their illness into the work and potentially spread it to their employees or coworkers.
Yep. Yes, Councillor Vink, follow-up question, go ahead. One.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Yes, so is this a one-time deal, or so in other words, could this be used 7, 8 times a year?
Yes, Councillor Cowell, go ahead.
So
Through the
what it
chair.
was
Yep.
in the past was they had 3 paid sick days a year, just 3. So you would get 3 days. I mean, you would get other sick days, but only 3 of them would be paid.
Okay. We'll call any other questions. Chair will call the question. All in favor of the motion? Carried. Resolution Town of Cochrane regarding their youth center closure. Mayor's County Council report. And item I, resolution, City of Kitchener, regarding the timeline being shortened on various planning matters. And yes, Councillor Cal.
I'd like to also move this motion. I had the opportunity to speak with our conservation area and our own local planning situation. And with a lack of staff that we currently have, if this was to continue with the timelines that they have, it would put us at risk of not being able to make the timelines. Alternatively, we would have to potentially hire more staff to meet these timelines, which could raise our costs for the taxpayers.
Council will ask for a seconder for Councillor Cal's motion. Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor Wilkins. Discussion? Seeing none. All in favor? Motion's carried. Item M, Council, local improvements, John Street. Yes, Councillor Crothers, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Yes, through you, Mayor. Yes, it's nice to see something happening on that street. And I believe it says we're on stage 4, so apparently it is moving along to some extent.
Yep, it is good news. It's been decades in discussion. It's nice to see it. And item N, yes, I'm sorry, Councillor Vink, go ahead. Ask your question.
Yes, after reading that, Mayor Allen, I wasn't quite sure what step we're in. Does that mean the petition is already passed, or they still have to do the petition?
No, it's in the very preliminary stages of it, but I'll let Jill speak to that. The numbers will have to come in and be firmed up, and there'll be some paperwork, but I'll let Jill, it is a process, and Jill can explain that process if you can at this time, Jill.
Sure. So through you to Councillor Vink. So it is a regulation under the Municipal Act that speaks to local improvement charges, and there's a couple of opportunities related to petitions. One is bringing in a petition for a group of people to ask for improvements. But then there's also the opportunity, once the bylaw is passed by council with the estimates, for people to petition against it. So we've received a sufficient petition related to people looking for this work. And we're really at the stage of number 4, notice of intention. So Denny has posted, or is about to post, that notice of intention for the information. That's essentially what is in that little section of the report that speaks to the estimated costs, etc. And we'll share that as well with the property owners. And the plan for a bylaw to come forward to council with the information related to the costs on May the 12th. And then it is a bit of a process again to wait to see if there is anybody against it, in the event that there needs to be, it's like a court of revision. If there are people petitioning against the costs, then there's an opportunity for that to be looked at as well. So kind of like the Drainage Act, actually, in terms of the process, and us facilitating the work and making it all happen.
Thank you, Jill. Yes, Deputy Mayor Wilkins, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I'll just remind Council that this is nothing new for Southwest Middlesex. We've done this before. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I think we can carry on. The last item, vegetation control, Canadian Pacific Railway. Council will entertain a motion that the municipality of Southwest Middlesex receives the agenda items 5A through 5M as information and approve the March 24th minutes. Moved by Councillor Crothers. Seconder, please. Counselor Vink. Discussion? All in favor? Carried. Council, item 6 on the agenda, Committee of Adjustment. There are none this evening. Item 7, public meetings. There are none. And item 8, we enter into staff reports. We'll begin with A, fire. There are none. Administration, Laserfish, record management. Jill, you can walk us through this one.
Sure. So as noted in the report, I'd asked council some time ago in the budget process to set aside some money with respect to implementing some of the changes related to records management using Laserfish. And with that funds, the hope was that we could have either a countywide project manager to assist in some of the scanning or facilitating that process, or a shared staff person. But that ultimately was not the option that other municipalities went with. So they've either hired permanent or contract staff to do some of that work in-house. So I'd like to be able to access those funds for the same project, just a different kind of delivery mechanism by having a contract staff person come and work for Southwest Middlesex. So that's what I'm asking for council today. It's not new money. It's already money that's been set aside for this purpose, but just a slight shift in how it would be directed.
Thank you very much, Jill. Councilor, are there any questions through the chair to Jill? Yes, Councilor Crothers, go ahead, please.
Yes, Chair. Just curious, do you have any idea of the timeline roughly this project's going to take?
The timeline on that, Jill?
Sorry, on which part of it? Through you?
Well, just the length of the project, like is it a
Oh.
month, 6 months, a year? Just an estimate. I don't expect.
Right. So yeah. So I would say Laserfish is going to be an ongoing project for how we deal with documents well into the future. This particular project, I'd just like to have a contract staff person for as long as the $20,000 will go. So that will only be for a few months. And it's alternatively, and the main focus of the project, I think, is noted in the report, is really to take those very useful files that we have related to properties and put that background information so that people can access that from anywhere. We're certainly not looking to put every single paper document that we have in the whole office into Laserfish at this point, because that would just be a tremendous undertaking. But we've discussed it, and all of the local municipalities are approaching this the same way in putting the property files at a sort of a minimum, and then from last year moving forward, it's about making sure final documents are in an electronic format in Laserfish.
Okay, thank you, Jill. Any other questions, council? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion that council support the creation of a temporary full-time position related to records management to be funded from existing reserves set aside for the project management of Laserfish.
So moved.
Thank you very much. Seconded by Councilor Crothers. Last call for questions. Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Next on the agenda is the fire service agreement of Strathroy Caradoc. Jill, you'll be presenting this? Yes, go ahead at your leisure.
Okay, So the this is a regular update to an agreement. Typically, it's been on a 3-year cycle, and this is just an update as to the cost sharing arrangement. The process that's been established is that Southwest Middlesex receives some fire services in the community of Melbourne through the Strathroy Caradoc department. And we pay for it both capital and operating based on actual calls and the volume of calls within our municipality, depending on the overall number of calls, on a 10-year average for a 3-year term. So that's the agreement, and it's just for renewal.
Thank you. Council, questions through the chair to Jill? Councillor Vink, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. To Jill, how does that work? I believe Strathroy Caradoc has 2 station responses to all their calls. I could be wrong, but that's what I thought I read. Does that always count as 1 call for the numbers for us?
Jill, if you can answer Councillor Vink's inquiry, go ahead.
So that I think maybe you're thinking of sort of the agreement, mutual aid, or I think there was a little while with Melbourne where they did have a 2-station response automatically just because they had some people retire and they were recruiting other staff. Is that what you're thinking of, Councillor Vink?
Well, yes, when they have. Yeah, fire, I believe Bob Bridges would count to that call as well. So does that count as 1 call against us, even though they have 2 departments going to the same call? So basically, my reason is that shouldn't be counted as a full call against Southwest Middlesex because they've got 2 departments going to the call.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's an agreement that's is on an annual basis, and it's limited to the change. But any other comments from questions regarding this? Seeing none, the recommendation is that council approve the bylaw, the fire service agreement with Strathroy Caradoc for the community of Melbourne. I'll entertain a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Crothers. A seconder, please. Councillor Scholdice, thank you. Last call for questions. All in favor? Carried. Item 3 under administration, Jill, childcare facility. You can introduce this.
Sure. So there are 2 parts to this facility. Some of you had the opportunity to tour it, which is great because we won't be doing tours in the near future. So that was good that people were able to get in there last week or the week before. So the daycare service providers that will be operating out of this new facility have put together a comprehensive list of a number of the items that they will be looking at for both furnishing and for educational materials for providing the daycare. And we've got a list that totals just over 240,000 with one little last minute addition that I think you saw in your email from Denny today, just another kitchen item related to a stove. So that list has been vetted pretty thoroughly by both the staff at the daycare and by the board. That isn't the total amount of money that's available for furnishings. There still are there still will be some money, and council has already authorized some other spending related to this, including some of the other furnishings and equipment, as well as some of the play equipment that's going to be outside. So that's one portion of the report, and the other is with respect to an entrance permit from the county. So in fairly short order, the county, in reviewing a proposed development that is expected to proceed in behind the daycare area, would now open up Charlotte Street, or at least that's what we were expecting. In the original design of the childcare facility, that was the expressed interest of the engineer, if that road were to ever open, that they did want to have 2 entrances. So to redesign and put that in place is an additional cost and a change order. Because this was expected by the engineer and needed to be done fairly quickly, I authorized that, but I'm coming to council for the support for that particular requirement from county engineering.
Thank you, Jill. Council, I'm sure there'll be questions directly through the chair to Jill from anyone. Yes, Councillor Scholdice, go ahead.
I see it says that approximately $60,000 will also come out of these funds for outdoor equipment. I'm just wondering what that will include.
Yeah, Jill, if you can answer the councillor, that'll be fine. Yeah.
Sure. So that's the kind of playground equipment that will actually be in place that was designed by the architect. So in the site plan, if you'll recall, there's an area there are a couple of different areas with particular things like sandboxes and raised water areas. And I could certainly pull a picture for council and share that after the meeting, but it's that type of natural equipment, like a stepping path and other items that are included in the design for the daycare, for that particular area for the daycare.
Good, thank you.
Council, any further questions? Councillor McGill, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Through the chair, I think we had 500,000, was it, towards furnishings
That's correct.
and playground equipment. Are we going to have enough to finish getting what we need out of the 500,000?
Go ahead, Jill.
Okay, so we have enough at this point, and I think once the Elm is in there providing the service, they would like a little bit of time in order to assess and see what other things they might need for future. They're going to be providing it eventually in the future, slightly different daycare than they have in the past. So I'm sure in that they're going to have available infants room and eventually move towards before and after school programs. So they may need a few more items. And we've already received the funding, so we will come back to council to authorize any additional purchases for that, but we're not at that threshold at this point.
Thank you, Jill. Any further questions? It's nice to hear. I've heard that Elm are very engaged in this, and we certainly appreciate their input. They are the experts in this field. Seeing no more questions, I will have a mover and a seconder. The council authorizes the purchase of furniture and equipment to be purchased for the new childcare facility in the amount of $234,761.82. And furthermore, the council authorized the funding for the change order to support the county requirements for the ingress and egress from the site from Charlotte Street from the Glencoe Child Care Reserve. A mover and a seconder. Yes, Jill, before I call a question.
Sorry, I just want to say there was a slight revision to the number, so it's 240,000.
Thank you. Yeah, we have the stove on there for 5,000, and that will increase that. Yeah. And the minutes and the minutes that'll be forthcoming at the next council meeting will reflect that. Yes, Councillor Cal, are you moving the motion? Yes, thank you very much. Seconder, Councillor Bartlett. Last call for questions. All in favor? Motion is carried. We move on to C, building. There are none. And item D, finance. Kristen, if you can walk us through the subject of deferral of interest and penalty.
I can, thank you. This is essentially a very similar report to the one that I presented in February, and at council's direction brought it back for this meeting. I just want to keep it at the forefront of council's mind that this is something that we're continuing to do for the ratepayers, and make sure that, you know, staff are acting in the direction that council wishes. So if you'd like to reconsider whether or not we would like to still continue providing that benefit to ratepayers.
Thank you. Kristen, we have some questions. Councillor Vink, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Yeah, I would like to see that we continue with it. Obviously, everybody knows we just have another lockdown, so businesses are going to be still affected, and homeowners, ratepayers. So I would like to see that we continue with the deferral.
Second.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll second.
Councillor Crothers, followed by Councillor Scholdice.
Yes, I'll second the motion.
Okay. All right. You made a motion of that, Martin. I didn't hear the word motion, but that's good. Okay. You'll move that, Martin, just to be
It
clear.
doesn't matter to me.
Well, it's one way or the other. Will you move that?
Sure, Mayor Allen.
All right. Moved by Vink,
Yes, I
seconded by
will.
Crothers, and Councillor Scholdice, I see your hand. Go ahead.
I just wondered if we wanted to include the 60 days clause on there as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, that would, I liked that the last time, and I think it is a fluid situation. And if that could be a friendly amendment, and we could review it at the end of 60 days, Councillor Vink.
Yes.
Thank you. I see a nod there, an approval, and Councillor Crothers, a nod of approval.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Further questions regarding this subject? Kristen, from a budgetary, oh, I'm sorry, Mark, Councillor McGill, go ahead. I just saw your hand.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I was just reading the original motion there, and it says that council direct the treasurer to defer the application of interest and penalty to all outstanding accounts receivables until 1 month following the resumption of normal business activities. And I'm just not sure when we might have a resumption of normal business activities. I think some things are never maybe going to go back to the way they were before. So at some point, we're going to have to do like most of the other municipalities in Middlesex have done and resume our charges. And it's just fortunate that most people have continued to pay their bills when they can. They haven't used this like a, I mean, nobody's really abusing this, I don't think, because you can see from the numbers that our receivables haven't really changed much from a year ago. Thank you.
Yep. Deputy Mayor Wilkins.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. So Kristen, this is to you. So in the budget, you did take this into consideration, and how much of the year did you consider this for?
Through you, Mayor, I considered about half the year. So my concern really is that I I've definitely seen in the past ratepayers who have investments or cash flow spike at certain times of the year and are definitely pay their taxes annually versus by installment as we charge them. So yes, we may be benefiting some ratepayers that are having a difficult time during COVID. We're also benefiting ratepayers that are maybe have investments that are gaining a better interest rate than we're charging, or cash flow that's coming in at certain other times. So I just want council to be able to weigh that so that we're not going to end up, if we continue to defer the interest past mid-year, then for next year, or in this year's budget, that either means that we're going to have to increase taxes next year to offset through the tax rate stabilization as Councillor Vink suggested, or we're going to have to scale back some services potentially.
Thank you, Kristen. It is a delicate subject. It's creates revenue to offset other expenses, and I'm glad that 60-day codicil is in there, because council will have to review it. And Councillor McGill, I appreciated your words in reference to the other municipalities that surround us, that we are one of the minority that have not done this. Councillor Cowell, go ahead.
I think an example of what Kristen's talking about is we recently purchased a tractor at 0% financing, and I could have taken the money out of my investments that are not collecting a lot of money, but a little bit of money, and paid the tractor outright. But I kind of thought I might as well use their money than my money and let my money sit in the interest. And it's the same thing with the municipality. I'm using your money right now to make money on my money, kind of thing, by not paying my taxes right away. I'm not saying that's what I'm doing, but it's the same idea in the sense that my money's collecting interest in a bank account somewhere else instead of paying you.
Any further questions? Kristen, is there a significant amount of ratepayers pay with pre-authorized check?
Yes, I would say.
Yeah, I would think so. And they are continuing.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's how we pay ours. Okay. There's a motion on the floor, council, and it's been seconded. I'll ask one more time out of courtesy for further questions. If not, we'll call the question. I'll give a moment. Moved by Councillor Vink, seconded by Councillor Crothers. I'll call the motion. All in favor? All opposed? Okay, Jill, I think it carried, did it not? Yes, okay. Thank you very much. We'll review this at 60 days. We are down to operations. Item E on the agenda, a request for a mutual agreement drain on Riverside. Andrew, would you like to walk us through this?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll start with the background. Recently, the owner of Lot 8, Range 2, former Mosa Township, met with Southwest Middlesex Road Department staff regarding obtaining a legal outlet for the drainage of the lands in question. After consultation, it was decided that the most viable options were two. Petition for a municipal drain to service the area, or go through the process for an agreement drain. The affected landowners preferred to go the agreement drain route and requested permission to cross River Drive with a tile crossing. Public Works staff reviewed the area and found that there was no roadside issues with drainage. and there would be no benefit to the road. As a result, the agreement would state that all construction and maintenance costs would be awarded to the benefiting property owner, and none of that cost would be assigned to the road. The landowner has obtained a quote, which was a part of this this report, from a qualified tile contractor to install the drain. The analysis in circumstances like this, Southwest Middlesex and previous townships have entered into agreements with the property owners upon request. This would protect the property owner in question, because it provides a legal outlet, but also it protects the municipality as well, because this would avoid a handshake agreement, and 30, 40, 50 years down the road, the question of who pays for what for this drain would come up. With an agreement that is registered on title, and a copy of this would be held in the municipal office, that question would not come up. It would be clearly laid out if this property owner or the future property owners should want to replace or do anything to this drain. This is all clearly laid out. And as you can see, the map outlines the direction of the drain. So the road is essentially acting as a conduit to run along the roadside ditch. Under the ditch, it's a tile, and then it will cut through private property and then back onto more property owned by the same property owner requesting this. And you can see he has included the actual agreement, and it clearly states construction cost 100% to him. 100% of the maintenance goes to him as well, and describes the drain, and it has the quote as well. And I will go back to the recommendation that the mayor and clerk be authorized to enter into the agreement drain with the owners of Lot 8, Range 2, former Moser Township, under the provisions of Section 2, subsection 1 of the Drainage Act.
Thank you, Andrew. Council, you've heard the recommendation. Are there any questions? Failing which, I'll entertain a mover and a seconder. Councillor Cowell moved, seconded by Councillor Vink. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you, Andrew, and you'll take us through item 2.
Yes, thank you again. I will go through some of the background on this. For the past number of years, there's been standing water issues on and around 6372 Falcon Bridge and the sod farm. If you refer to the map I've included, you can see that. In February of 2020, staff went to investigate the standing water issue. It was found at this meeting that there were 2 separate problems, one of which the current Kevlar's drain needed to be reconstructed. And this went to council some time ago. On-site meeting was held with the engineer, and he is currently working on the report. The other problem was that there was a shared low area that tended to flood with both properties in question. Over the past year, correspondence between the owner of 6372 Falcon Bridge and the Glover's Strathroy Sod Farm, staff gave 2 options to correct the chronic standing water problem. The first option was similar to the one first described, was the agreement drain of some form. The second option was a branch drain to be added under the Drainage Act under Section 4. This would provide an outlet for the properties, and the drain would potentially go up to the road. So the financial implications, there's no immediate financial implications to this recommendation. However, the road would be awarded some of the assessment, given there would more than likely be a catch basin for the road water. And a part of this, there's a map that I've included that is a rough estimate of the area requiring drainage. You'll notice that it does include 6372, the sod farm, and part of the road. The road has a poorly defined ditch in this area. So at this point, I would recommend that council accept the petition filed under section 4, 1A of the Drainage Act, that is ratepayers, and that the drainage superintendent contact St. Clair Conservation Authority and other authorities to ensure legal compliance.
Thank you, Andrew. Council, you've heard the recommendation of the drainage superintendent. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Deputy Mayor, I don't want to miss you there. I saw your hand go up, but I think you were just scratching your chin there. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
No,
Mark,
I was
you were
just
drinking.
putting my earplug back in there,
That's
Mayhew.
good. Yeah, Mark, I think you raised a glass of water there, so no question. Okay, thank you. Council, you've heard the recommendation by the drainage superintendent. I'll entertain a mover and a seconder.
So moved.
Okay, thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Wilkins, and seconded by Councillor Crothers. All in favor? Carried. Andrew, if you could walk us through the McFarland drain, your last report.
Yes, sir. This report is similar to the bridge that had already gone to council upstream on the McFarland drain. Mr. Zwombag brought to the municipality's attention that he had concern for the longevity of the head wall. At that point, I had went out to look at the condition of the bridge. And while there, it was noticed that the culvert, a part of the bridge, was in very poor condition, and that it was in need of more than just a new head wall. So if you can recall, I had brought this to council already to accept the request, and I had sent out notices to everyone upstream to inform them that this was an addition to the drain, that the different options had been given to the property owner, and he had chose to go through the Drainage Act to allow cost sharing. And as far as financial implications, as usual, the road would have a portion of the assessment towards this bridge. And you can see in my map, I've included where the bridge is. Currently, the bridge is quite narrow, and that is a concern to Mr. Zwombag. And that is where I would recommend that council appoint Spreet and Associates under Section 78 of the Drainage Act to prepare a report to replace the bridge located on Gerald and Joanna Zwombag on their property.
Okay. Council, any questions to the drainage superintendent? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion that his recommendation be accepted. Mover and seconder. Councillor Crothers, seconded by Councillor Bartlett. Last call for questions. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, Andrew, very much.
Thank you, sir.
Item 4 are brine tender results. Greg, would you like to walk us through this?
Yes, I can do that, and thank you, Mayor Ellen. You do have my brine result report in front of you. The tenders closed on the 17th of March with 4 companies participating in the process. I have provided the results to you. Typically, we will select and have selected the minimum 18% single coverage that and complete road coverage that's been done in the past. I will remind council as well that dust control has 2 purposes. One, it reduces the amount of dust in gravel roads, but also acts as a binding agent so that during the spring and fall times, we have much better gravel roads than if we didn't apply the brine. And certainly the granular and brine programs are just real key to making sure that we can maintain our huge and large kilometers of gravel roads within the municipality. The actual budget numbers came back in our favor. As I've mentioned before, at times when we have budget numbers come over the budget, in this particular case, the market is dictating that you know, the supplier that we are recommending has come in about 80,000 under the budget. The other 2 particular prices are pretty much right on our budget number. So that market now has dictated here, and it will play out in other municipalities as they move forward. So my actual recommendation to council is that they approve the tender prices supplied by Denmark Brines for the supply and application of minimum of 18% brine solution at 0.066 cents price per liter.
Thank you, Greg. Council, you've heard the recommendation of the operations manager. Are there any questions you'd like to direct to him through the chair? Councillor Vink first, followed by Councillor Crothers.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. To Greg, will we be testing that there's a minimum 18%?
Through you.
Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Ellen. Yes, it's part of the tender. So that's a process we go through, and we have the opportunity to also test loads as they come out into the field as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Crothers and Councillor Cal, did I miss your hand? You have your hand up. You're following Councillor Crothers. I see it now.
First, actually. I believe she was first, actually.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Crothers or Councillor Cal.
Thank you, Councillor Crothers. So I just wanted to confirm that the single pass still means that we cover both sides of the road and not just one pass down the middle. Is that correct? That we're still doing each side of the road to have full coverage to make sure that the shoulders are bound well through the mayor to Mr. Storms.
Go oh, you're on mute, Greg.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, it is part of my report. If you do look down below the financial considerations, you'll see that in 2018, we did apply the complete road coverage for the first time, and we continue to do that.
Yeah.
When I asked my questions, that's what I thought I had understood. And then when you were talking, I was like, oh, I think I read it wrong then. So anywho, I was like, oh, thank you for clarifying that.
Okay, great. Thank you, Councillor Cal. Councillor Crothers, go ahead.
Yes, I believe my question's been answered. I was just checking on them.
Okay. That's great. Council, any further questions directed to the chair, to the operations manager? Councillor Cal, go ahead.
I'd just like to move the recommendation, please.
Okay, thank you very much. And a seconder to Councillor Cal's recommendation, Councillor McGill. Last call to questions to Greg. All in favor of the operations manager's recommendation? Carried. Greg, if you'd like to proceed with a half-ton truck tender results, item 5.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Allen. I'll go through the report quickly. If you recall, Council, this was a recreation vehicle that's been on the books for a couple of years, I believe, and the number was increased from 30,000 and was increased up to 35,000 prior to my time. And what we needed to do was get this truck in the fold. It is important that we have this truck as part of the fleet, both in recreation and public works. So we put this on the market through a half-ton truck tender, which closed on the 17th of March. The tender was sent to many dealerships that deal with 4x4 trucks within the county. And we did receive a response from 3 vendors. Those results are in front of you. The approved capital budget, which was a number that was carried forward and added to in last year's capital, wasn't enough to cover the actual low cost or the low bidder cost for this truck. So between conversations that we had with Kristen and I had, we would have to access the transportation reserve to purchase this vehicle. All the submissions that we received, we carried the same warranty. And the resolution I have in front of you tonight is the council approves the purchase of a new half-ton pickup 4x4 from Finch Chev Cadillac in the amount of $46,330, and that $11,300 be moved from the transportation reserve for this purchase.
Thank you, Greg. Council, questions through the chair to Greg? Yes, Councillor McGill.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. There's not a lot of detail about the specifications of the truck. Is it a 4-door, maybe?
Through you, Mary Ellen, it's not an extended cab. That would have put us into a whole different market. So we went with the 4x4, which is critical to if this truck's used by the drainage superintendent or by road staff and rec staff. We wanted a 4x4, and the tender spec itself certainly outlined what requirements we wanted in the truck.
Okay. So it's just a 2-door.
It's just a 2-door at this point.
Thank you. Councillor Bartlett, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Mayor, to Greg. Is this going to be an additional truck to the fleet, or will we be disposing of one of the current ones?
Through you, Mayor Allen, in conversation with the Parks and Rec, or the Facility and Rec Supervisor, as well as the Public Works Supervisor, we will be keeping the truck that apparently was supposed to be disposed of in the past, and that's the Ford that's sitting at the office right now. We do need another truck in the fold right now because of the reporting for COVID, and it makes it difficult because we have to have trucks in certain spots because we have our staff reporting to different workplaces. So we may turn another truck back in, but it won't be immediately. We need this truck to be part of the operation, and once we get through COVID, we may dispose of that other truck. But currently, we're going to need it to survive as far as where staff are reporting and the type and need for vehicles in both departments.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Council, any further questions to Greg through the chair? Councillor Vink, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew, to Greg. With COVID-19, we have to entertain social distancing. Was that thought of like with a 4-door? Possibly you could have 2 people in there, but with a 2-door, I hesitate to say that probably you can only put 1 worker in that truck. Is that correct?
I think confined space, that might not make a great deal of difference in terms of ventilation. But Greg, would you like to take a shot at answering that?
Yeah, certainly. Through you, Mayor Allen, like we try to do single activities, but there are cases even now where we have to have 2 people in a truck, and certainly then, we maintain the health unit's protocols associated with those people being together in a truck. We have been active in doling out individual activities for workers, but there are occasions where there's 2 people in a truck and they must wear masks and they must maintain their distance. And we do have active cleaners that are cleaning these vehicles on a regular basis, as well as the workplaces, to try to keep our staff safe. So it isn't a situation where you're just going to find 1 person in a truck. And really, whether it's a big, whether it's one of our big units or, half-ton pickups, that the distance may be compromised a little bit based on 2 people being in a truck. But we work in both directions here and want to make sure that when they are together, that they keep their distance as far as they can, and they wear masks, and we have the cleaning protocols in place. That's the way we operate every day.
Good. Council, any further questions? Just raise your hand. Yep. Seeing none. The recommendation is before you. I'll entertain a mover and a seconder for the recommendation if council desires. A mover for the operation manager's recommendation. Thank you, Councillor Bartlett. A seconder for that. A seconder for the purchase of the truck, Councillor McGill. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor McGill just beat you by a second there. Last call for questions. All in favor of the motion? All opposed? Motion is carried. Greg, if you'd like to walk us through item number 6, turf maintenance contractor quoting and proposals. And I can't hear you, Greg.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Mary Ellen. Here's report 3. Report 3 tonight really is the turf maintenance contractor quoting and proposals that were put on the market. Document was issued with the due date in March 29th. The following areas were included in receiving pricing for grass cutting services with the Southwest Middlesex, and I itemized 16 different areas that would be part of this contract. In the analysis section, certainly do provide some information with regards to the criteria used to evaluate the quotes and the proposals. The results itself are in front of you. These are average costs based on the submissions. These costs would include the cutting of certain properties weekly or bi-weekly and are outlined in the table above. The evaluation committee was comprised of recreation and finance staff and utilized the following criteria for selection of the successful contractor: the complete quoting of all properties, the price, the service delivery model, which include equipment and staffing, and previous work completed by the contractor. The committee put forth a recommendation for the selection of Brad's Lawn Care as the contractor. Brad's Lawn Care be responsible for all properties, and that 1-year contract be executed with this particular contractor. So part of the discussion also stemmed in talking about how we can have a look at the 2 arboritas that we have in place. And, you know, we went to the past and looked at the past and said, you know, how are these looked after and were we successful? And I think it was pretty, you know, the opinion was that, you know, they're great spots, they're centerpieces for the municipality, and that, you know, we probably, you know, when we looked after these ourselves, we probably just didn't do as good a job as the residents and council wanted us to do. So staff had the discussion on how the arboretums or arboritas would be maintained moving forward in 2021. You have to remember that part of the capital, the complete capital program wasn't completed for these 2 areas. So there will be a fair bit of tree planting that still occurs, and we do have capital money in the budget to look after that. And as part of the discussions that took place, Green Street Landscaping was approached to get pricing on the complete care of the arboretums, which would include the care of trees, pathways, grass, and flower beds. Green Street supplied pricing for each area at $7,510 for the complete care of each arboretum for the 2021 season. This work would include cutting all grass, care and replanting of trees, pathway care, ensuring all flower beds are taken care of, and that our trees survive and thrive. So staff are recommending to engage Green Street Landscaping for the complete care of both arboretums for the 2021 season as part of this process itself. So the recommendation is the council approves the selection of Brad's Lawn Care as the turf maintenance contractor at an average cost of $1,510 for all properties provided in Table 1, excluding both arboretums, and that council approves the selection of Green Street Landscaping at a cost of $15,020 for the complete maintenance, trees, grass, pathways, and flower beds for both arboretums in Southwest Middlesex. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I just will end off simply by saying that if you look at the criteria, the criteria is about a balance between price and service delivery. And when it comes to grass cutting, it's really important that, first of all, we deal with one grass cutter, which would do all the properties. And secondly, it has to be quality company, and as well as balanced pricing. And that was the criteria that was used to select this particular contract.
Thank you, Greg. Council, I'm sure there'll be some questions. Are there any? Do I see any? Yes, Councillor Vink, go ahead, and followed by Councillor Scholdice.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. To Greg, I know you touched on it, Greg, about the Arena. You mentioned that we did some of the work ourselves prior to 2021. Is it a case of that we don't have the people power to look after it? And the reason I mentioned this, we had a reorganization saying that we were going to save money. Now this looks like an added cost to the ratepayers. So that's a bit of a contradiction.
Yeah, just a minute. Hold it. Yeah, just before Jill, would you like to make a point here? Yep.
Sure. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just going to note that Kristen can probably speak to the cost savings as a result of the structure that council did support, and it did include contracting out grass service cutting. So that was part of the restructuring program that we saw.
I understand that it wasn't in numbers, but so I apologize, Councillor Vink, for cutting you off. I just wanted to make sure that we were on course here. But please continue if you wish, Councillor Vink.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I was done with my question, but I don't know if it was all heard or not. But my point is that we did some of the upkeep. We did, I think, all the upkeep before, and now we're not. And so it kind of, we were talking about reorganization, that there was going to be a saving. Well, now we're spending extra costs on this. That's my point.
Yeah, we'll have Councillor Vink, we'll have Kristen clarify that at the appropriate time. In the meantime, Greg, I see your hand up. Go ahead through the chair.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Allen. I think that everybody around the table would understand that what happened last year wasn't acceptable. I think the number of complaints that we received, with the staff that we had last year, we had a tough time taking care of pathways. We had trees dying. We had the grass that wasn't cut properly. And, we had water that was all over the place, and the weeds in the flower bed weren't taken care of as well as they could have. So do we have the expertise to look after the tree care? We wouldn't have had the expertise last year, nor do we have the expertise this year. That's why I'm bringing this forward. And secondly, they are centerpieces to this municipality. In a lot of ways, we have a huge investment that we paid already into these particular areas. And I think everybody would agree that they need to be well taken care of. I'm not asking for this to happen forever, but certainly in the infancy of these both areas that not only have Carolinian species trees in them, they require a certain level of expertise. And the contractor from last year was not very happy because he was trying to deal with some of the issues there. And, he just wasn't very happy. So what we're suggesting is for this year, let's get these places established. Let's make sure that the trees thrive and that the residents in our municipality can actually drive, park, not only enjoy a walk, but learn something while they do that. These two particular areas are very consistent with the direction that the Facilities and Recreation Master Plan are heading, and where people need outdoor recreation. And I want to see them taken care of and taken care of well. And in 5 years from now, 2 years from now, we may be able to look after it as a group when it comes just straight maintenance. So I don't think it has anything to do with comparison of staff from last year to this year. And I have mentioned over and over again that, our particular template in recreation and facilities is not about doing what was done in the past. It's about moving forward in a progressive way and taking the comments and all the stuff that we've heard from council and trying to resolve those issues and move forward, with these two areas that are, excellent spots that council is committing committed to the residents to have available and be proud of. So that's kind of where we're at with it.
Thank you, Greg. Councillor Scholdice, go ahead.
Thank
Through
you.
the
I
chair.
had a couple of questions. Firstly, how much did it cost to cut the grass at the arboretums last year?
Kristen, perhaps could answer that. Please ask your questions through the chair, council, Councillor Scholdice. Kristen, do you have numbers on that?
Not on hand. I'd have to look that up and get back to you.
Okay, that'll be fine. We'll look forward to that. Perhaps you can direct your answer to Councillor Scholdice or all of council when you find those numbers.
Absolutely.
Follow-up question, Councillor Scholdice.
Thank you. Through you, the chair, perhaps we should be holding off on making a decision until we get that number. And also, I'd like to ask if we will be hiring any other outside companies to do maintenance work that the Facilities and Recreation Department has traditionally done.
Okay. Any other questions to Greg regarding this?
Through you, Mayor Allen, I could certainly answer, the second question, that's no. And the first question was again?
I think Councillor Scholdice was suggesting that we hold off making a decision until he finds out the information from Kristen.
Just
So
that we can compare
I
it.
can certainly make a comment on that as well. And that would be that, the time now is, we need to get at these areas and we need to take care of them. It's very similar to the grass situation that we have. So
yeah.
Grass is going to grow whether we as a group decide that this is what we want to do or we don't want to do. And, the recommendation before you tonight is basically for, a 1-year period to look after these arboretums and get them established. So, and, what Kristen would have to do is calculate every hour of every minute that people had spent at these particular areas from their timesheets and every piece of material that we bought associated with these 2 particular areas to get that information back to council.
Yeah. One more question, Councillor Scholdice, go ahead.
For clarification, I did not ask for all that information. I simply asked how much did we pay to have the grass cut at the arboretums.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Cowell, did you have your hand up?
I'd like to move the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Deputy Mayor Wilkins, thank you very much. Last call for questions. Councillor McGill, yes, I see your hand. Apologize for the delay, Mark.
Yep, thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I just want to make the comment that I'm glad that council decided to pick those 2 locations as our arboretums, because the other proposal was to have another location, a new location. One idea was on Industrial Road, and the other one was in Glencoe, where the library had been originally intended on going. And if we'd have done that, we'd have another location to maintain. So this option of going with fixing up the 2 properties we already had, one in Ward 1 and one in Ward 3, I think was a lot better idea, certainly a lot more economical.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Greg, I always enjoy our conversations prior to these meetings just to clarify a few things. And I took away 2 words from you when we were discussing this that I remember vividly. One is that these 2 projects are in their infancy and they need an established footprint for the health and well-being for the rest of their life. And it is important that we start out right. And I recall your words at the time that this would not be a long-term thing, that it's critical that we start out to get these 2 showpieces established. And I think those words should be reiterated. Council, the recommendation is before you. I will now call the question. All in favor of the Director of Operations recommendation? All opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Greg. Greg, if you could walk us through the tender results for the Main Street water line.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you, report number 4, which is the tender results for the Main Street water line in Glencoe. The Main Street water line project, which everybody is aware of, was engineered and procured by Spirit Associates in London. They have provided a letter of recommendation to us, and those results are in front of you. I give you the information with regards to the implications financially, and just a little bit of information on asset management. I have also provided the actual recommendation letter from Spreetz to the municipality. And what I'm recommending tonight is that council approves the recommendation of Spreetz Associates for the selection of Omega Contractors at a cost of $1,727,000, $423.93 for the construction of the Main Street water line in Glencoe.
Thank you, Greg. Council, are there any questions through the chair to the Director of Operations? Councillor Cowell? Nope. Okay. Oh, you're playing with your hair there. Sorry, Krista. Councillor Crothers, I see your hand.
Through the chair to Greg, just timeline, what are they looking at? Things go through for to proceed with the job.
Through you, Mayor Allen, I think I had a little trouble hearing Councillor Cruther.
Yes, I did as well. Could you speak up, Ian?
Sorry. Timeline. What's the availability of the contract if they were to be away?
Yeah. The timeline on the availability of the contractor, Greg?
Through you, Mayor Allen, the timeline for this completion of this project as soon as possible. The contractor is available. And all that needs to happen, to get the process started here after tonight is the pre-construction meetings, which will occur. And it is critical that we do have and include, all the work, the contractors and the workers that are doing work in downtown Glencoe. So that pre-construction meeting would include the contractor, ourselves, public works supervisor, as well as Gerbers, who's the lighting contractor for downtown. We have to make all of this happen with very little impact on the vendors, as well as making sure that it all gets installed properly and works out in the end. So this is a big job, but the coordination of it will happen through the pre-construction meetings. And, it is a long time coming for this particular project.
Thank you. Councillor Crothers, you have a follow-up question? Go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to move to accept the resignation.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Cowell seconded the motion. Yes, Councillor Cowell, do you have a question?
I just wanted to point out the awesomeness of the fact that it is almost $200,000 under the amount that we are getting, whatever. That's bad language. I get it. But I just wanted to be like, woo woo.
Yeah.
A lot of
Good
stuff
point.
comes under
Yeah.
budget, and
Yeah.
that's a big
Yeah.
one.
Councillor Cowell, would you be kind enough to move that, second to that motion? Yeah, okay, thank you. Moved by Councillor Crothers, seconded by Councillor Cowell. I'll call the question. All in favor of the operation manager's recommendation? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Greg, very much. Kept you busy tonight. Number 9, Councillor Scholdice, notice of motion. Michael, can you walk us through this?
Sure. I don't know whether you wanted to have the motion read out or would you like me to just make a comment on it? I guess we all have the motion. So,
okay.
This notice of motion is probably self-explanatory, but for those who are watching and didn't catch the last few minutes of our last meeting, this came about after I was called out of order for attempting to bring forward 2 business items at the request of ratepayers. In one of those instances, the ratepayer had already attempted to contact the office, and in the second, there was a safety matter that the ratepayer felt all councillors should be made aware of. As councillors, we have been told to contact the treasurer with questions about vouchers. those answers are not made public. Now, counselors are being told to contact staff rather than bring comments and questions to meetings, no matter whether the comments are positive or negative. At this point, we are unable to represent the public as we have been elected to do so. As counselors, we need to remember who we work for, and I am simply asking for the support of this notice of motion to allow counselors to respectfully bring comments and inquiries forward during the announcements portion of the agenda.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Scholdice. Councillor Vink? Yep. Go
Thank
ahead,
you,
Martin.
Yep, thank you, Mayor Allen. First of all, I'd like to have a recorded vote on this motion. Secondly, I'd like to, it's self-explanatory, I agree with Councillor Scholdice. I'd like to point out just a quick example in the last week or two. I heard a rumor about libraries and some ratepayers were very concerned. And so what I did was, to do my job, I contacted Bill Rayburn, and this was absolutely unnecessary. I should have been able to do that sort of thing on inquiries at a council meeting.
Okay, but yeah, but council may have been unable to answer that question as we are not responsible for the library program. The county is, but if you ask staff, staff will get those answers for you on your behalf. There's no question. The chair felt uncomfortable ruling the councillor out of order at the last meeting. But what I find that many property owners have told me that they do not want their grievances made public. Policies and procedures are a part of doing business. I noticed that the notice of motion indicated the word in a respectful manner. Respectful manners have not always been present. And I'm going back over a period of a year and a half. There's been, the chair has some flexibility. And despite a prolonged trust in council that they would be respectful, some of the most inflammatory moments we've had at this council meeting have been during that particular segment of the agenda. Furthermore, the discussion is not about silencing council, it's about dealing with ratepayers' issues privately, efficiently, and effectively. I think finding satisfaction in the solution is the goal. It's not about a debate. It's not about it's about a rapid response in solving problems. As council, we need a particular format that is consistent. Policy and procedures are part of doing business. This council has had extensive training, and in that curriculum, we were all told to bring grievances to the CAO, who will examine and forward your complaint to the department heads. Solution to problems are what we want, and the most effective and efficient way to get a satisfactory conclusion is to bring it to staff. There's no delays waiting for a meeting or a gallery. And I mentioned at the last meeting, should any councillor not be satisfied with administration's response, bring it to my attention, and I will sit down with staff, and certainly the councillor will be invited to join us as well. And we will find a resolve to the issue. I take offense at being accused of muffling conversation. I try earnestly to allow extensive debate on all reports that come forth. But the goal here is what is the best way and the most efficient way to solve problems. 7 days a week, I follow the format of advising staff. Within 15 minutes of receiving a complaint, I send a reply to the ratepayer and a copy to administration. And I am amazed at the stellar speed in which administration addressed these concerns that I raise. I have been doing that from December 4th of 2019. 18. Anyway, I'm sure there's other councils. Councillor Scholdice has moved this. I want to continue this discussion. Is there a seconder for the notice of motion? Okay, and then thank you, Councillor Vink. And we'll have discussion. Councillor Cowell, I see your hand. Go ahead.
I think that the mayor mentioned talking about respect, and there are 6 councillors that on a regular basis have not had to be cut off during councillor comments and don't bring up the concerns of ratepayers very, very, very rarely in councillor comments. So I think that if you feel like you're being silenced, this is a moment of reflection. Your behavior is not always respectful, and this is your moment to reflect and wonder how come perhaps you are being impacted differently than the rest of us. I will say that when I have a ratepayer send me an email about garbage, they don't want me to wait till a meeting because they want it dealt with before next Wednesday. Additionally, today I had someone inquire about the pandemic and the lockdown, and within an hour, staff had a response back from me about their situation as a business or an organization in the community. I think that an FYI to council about safety issues, especially if it's a safety issue, is the most timely way to get information out to us. We have received training about how we can communicate these issues. And finally, when we have the opportunity to get information out to the public, there is nothing about the vouchers that isn't allowed to be shared publicly. When we get questions that, when we have questions or when ratepayers have questions, I share that information regularly. When I remember to do it, I do it on my social media platform. If a ratepayer has asked me about something, if it comes up on the agenda, I make a point to send it to them. In this day and age of technology, our council meetings once every 2 weeks should not be the only way we communicate to people. And if that's the only avenue you're taking to air the grievances, I suspect we're not doing the best for our ratepayers who elected us.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Cowell. Councillor Shouldice, through the chair. Go ahead, Michael.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Just for clarification, I had no grievances. I brought forward concerns from ratepayers as asked to do so by the ratepayers in council meetings.
Okay. Councillor Vink, I see your hand. Go ahead, Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I'd like to point out all the years I've been on council, my inquiries, first thing I always ask is, do you want me to present this at council? And so I haven't presented anything where the ratepayer is not aware of that I was going to present it at council. In fact, they wished me to present it because they wanted to make sure that they're being heard. And that's what we're here for, to hear the ratepayers. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Just perhaps, Councillor Vink, go back on my further words. I listen to the ratepayers, but I'm more concerned about solving the issue that they have. That's the enjoyment I get out of this job. It's not broadcasting their problem, but solving their problem. And I just wanted that clarified. Deputy Mayor Wilkins, thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. As Councillor Cowell said previously, I too get the phone calls. I've had the knocks on my door, and I've had people stop me while I'm grocery shopping with concerns and questions. And I've never once, at least not for many, many years, brought those concerns during councillors' comments and inquiries or during announcements. I too contact the staff person or the CAO, the department head who's responsible. And as Councillor Cowell has said, I very rarely don't get a reply back within minutes. Once I know the answer to the concern or question or how it's going to be remedied, the concern, I again notify the ratepayer that's contacted me. It's something that's worked very, very well. And I will say it's something that previous mayors have always encouraged us to do. Council meetings are for council business. They're not to discuss or criticize operational issues. And that's what it comes across as. that we're criticizing staff when we bring those out during a segment like announcements or inquiries. So I won't be supporting this. I think that we should have done the discussion when this was brought up twice when we were dealing with the report on the procurement policies. It wasn't even addressed at that time. There was nobody that had a concern with it. So I won't be supporting it.
Thank you. Councillor McGill, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I think we have to look at efficient use of our time too, because these meetings, there's a lot of business to be conducted at these meetings. And if we have 8 members of council and 4, possibly 5 staff members hearing a discussion about a street light being burned out or a wheelie bin that tipped over, you know, it would be a more efficient use of everyone's time if the counselor that found out about that problem just contacted the staff and had it remedied, instead of all of us listening to that discussion. And also, I just wanted to comment on the one whereas, where it says on page 8, whereas meetings are the only opportunity for council members to legally share information. Well, we can legally share information face to face with people, I guess, as long as we're wearing masks right now. Or we could use the telephone, or we could use the internet. There's lots of ways to legally share information besides bringing it up at a council meeting. So I won't be supporting this motion either. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vink. Go ahead. Go ahead, Martin.
Thank you. One final point, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. One final point. This is my 4th term of council. There never was a problem with the other 3 councils to have comments and inquiries. So what this is telling me, that somehow this council is smarter than the other 3, I don't think so. So therefore, I think we still should have inquiries and announcements.
Okay. Okay, last call for questions, council. Yes, Councillor McGill, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I think we can still have announcements. If somebody had attended a meeting and wanted to share with the rest of, if somebody had some information they wanted to share, that's my idea of what an announcement is. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor Mayhew, but I think that would still be allowed, would it not, under announcements?
I believe so, yep. Yep. Okay, council, last call. Seeing none, there's a notice of motion before you. It's been moved by Councillor Scholdice and seconded by Councillor Vink. I'll call the question. All in favor of the notice of motion?
I'd like to request a recorded vote.
Recorded vote.
Oh, yes, recorded vote. Yes, Jill. Yeah, thank you very much. And Jill, you take the reins.
Sure, thank you, Mayor Mayhew. It was, my recollection was it was Councillor Vink that asked for it first. So we'll start with Councillor Vink.
Yes.
Councillor Bartlett. I think you're up.
Sorry, no.
Councillor Scholdice.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Wilkins.
No.
Mayor Mayhew.
No.
Councillor McGill.
No.
Councillor Carruthers.
Yes.
Councillor Cowell.
No.
The motion is defeated.
Okay. Thank you, council. I know that's a sensitive subject, but council's decision reigns, and we respect all councilors equally. Thanks for your time there. Item number 10 on the agenda, correspondence and petitions regarding the transfer payment, the OFMEM, regarding funding for the fire department for training opportunities. Jill, can you clarify that anymore?
Sure. So funding opportunity from the OFMEM for training for the volunteer department. It requires a resolution of council. So it's already been applied for by the chief, and next step would just be a council resolution to really accept that opportunity.
We'll accept the money if they want to give it to us. So would someone entertain a motion that recommendation be accepted? Councillor Crothers, seconded by Councillor Bartlett. Any discussion through the chair to Jill? Seeing none, I'll call the motion. All in favor? Carried. Unfinished business, item number 11, council. There is none. 12, new business. There's been no removed items from the consent agenda or other business. We can regard that as none. Item 13, county council and conference updates. The county council update was in your package or your consent agenda. Any reports on conferences or seminars? Yes, Councillor Cowell, go ahead.
I think there were a few of us who attended the backyard chicken seminar, and it was amazing. And I think most of us learned more about chickens than we ever wanted to know in our entire lives, except me, because I wanted to know all of it. But it was so informative, and they did a really, really good job of talking about how they can work in an urban area and some of the regulations that a municipality might need. And there was a question and answer opportunity throughout the whole event. So it was really, really helpful for myself as a counselor to be able to ask some of those kind of questions. They were really good about, if you said, like, if we're a municipality and we're considering this, you know, what do you recommend? And it was just super insightful. Plus they put it on YouTube, so we can go back and watch all 3 hours again if we want to.
Good. Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Cal, for bringing that up. I was hoping someone would. I wasn't able to get to that, but it certainly was intensive, it sounds. Okay, yes, Councillor Vink, go ahead.
Mayor Mayhew, I'll speak on that same conference. The moderator was very informed. He really knew what he was talking about. And the one thing that I got out of it, there's tremendous costs in setting one up, setting one of these chicken coops up. And so everybody should take a look at that.
Okay. Yep, that's an interesting comment, Martin. Thank you. Okay. I think we can move on from there. Item 14, announcements. I understand the Glencoe Agricultural Society did have some dinners coming up in the summer months, late spring, summer months. So keep your eye open for that. We'll see. I'm not sure how the announcement will affect them, but hopefully we're beyond that. Though when we approach those dates, we can partake of that. Anything else? Closed session, Jill, not anticipated, I believe. Thank you. I see your head shake there. We are at the bylaws. If we, Councillor Cowell will excuse her from the first two in order that she can join us in the rest. Bylaw number 2021-028 and bylaw 2021-029. If I can have a first, second, and third reading of that entertained, if someone would move that. Councillor Bartlett, seconded by Councillor Crothers. All in favor?
Oh, excuse me, can we have a discussion?
Oh, yeah. Oh, discussion. Yes, I'm sorry. Martin, thank you for reminding me of that.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I cannot support this. There's an obvious conflict of interest here. I don't know how far you want me to go with this, but you mentioned at the initial meeting was brought up that there could be, one counselor mentioned that there could be a possible conflict. And you, I believe it was you, Mayor Mayhew, stated that it could be arranged that that particular person would not be serving in Southwest Middlesex. But here, and lo and behold, the name is both here for CBO and for building inspector and for bylaw enforcement. And so therefore I cannot support this. It's not fair to the ratepayers in Southwest Middlesex.
That individual would be part of the bylaw, but it would be up to his employer as to where he would delegate his profession to go. Jill, can you help me out with this in any degree?
Sure. The bylaws that are before you are frankly just add-ons. So we had two different ways we could have done this. One, to add the new individuals that have recently been hired by amending the previously adopted bylaw, or rescinding the whole bylaw and adding new bylaws with everyone's name. So the option that was picked was to just rescind the bylaws and have them done all over again. But with respect to the counselor's comments, the individual is already identified as a CBO and inspector and municipal bylaw enforcement officer currently.
Okay. Yeah, it's I find that, spring is approaching. There's a significant amount of development as well, and these bylaws coming forth, I suggest to council that they are timely as well. Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion for the approval of these two bylaws, first, second, and third reading.
It's been moved and seconded.
Oh, it has been moved and seconded. Okay, we've got it then. Sorry, yep. All right. I'll call the question. All in favor? All opposed? Carried. And Councillor Cowell, welcome back, if you can hear me. We have bylaw 2021-030, 2021-031, 2021-032, 2021-033. These four bylaws, would someone entertain first, second, and third reading? Councillor McGill, Councillor Cowell, thank you. All in favor? Carried. And council, item number 17, your future meetings are there. The April 21st meeting and the May 12th meeting. And I move we adjourn at 8:43.